You've been feeling really tired these days, haven't you? Why don't you take the rest of the day off? Oh, I know. I'll make you dinner. I can only make curry or something simple like that, though.
Well, to be honest, curry sounds very nice. I'll take your word for it. I do have work tomorrow, so would you mind if I stay in bed a little longer? My husband's kind words left me with no doubt that the rough patch between us was now in the abyss of the past. About an hour later, I ate his homemade curry and it tasted delicious. Unfortunately, no thanks to the extreme sleepiness I was feeling, I didn't have much of an appetite and wasn't able to finish what was on my plate. However, I did make a promise to my husband that I would bring some for my lunch tomorrow at work. However, the next morning, as I was waiting for the train on my way to the office, I suddenly felt a huge wave of nausea overwhelm me, and as I tried to control the dizziness, I slumped forward. My legs wobbled weakly and I fell down onto the tracks. This is the story of how a small rift between my husband and I turned out to be something far, far more serious and dangerous, and how an unexpected source of information led to the chain of events that eventually resulted in the arrest and rightful persecution of those responsible for what could have been a major catastrophe. My name is Catherine, and I'm a 32-year-old office worker. My husband, Ira, is 30 years old and works in a bank. We had been married for 3 years when this whole story started, and we had no children yet as of then. We were enjoying our time together, working hard to make enough money to live a decent married life and traveling together on our holidays. One day, Ira told me that he was about to be transferred to a branch in another region of the country.
I say transfer, but it's more of a promotion than anything else. If I'm offered the job, I'm sure I'll be on the track towards more success, which means a better life for us.
That's awesome, honey, but that'll mean I'll have to go with you so far away. I wonder what I'm going to do for my own job.
I know you're worried about the suddenness of all this, but you have to understand, if I move out of here and leave for my new job if I get it, I'll have less credibility, which will mean I'll be less likely to be considered for the ideal candidate for the job. I'm not the only one shooting for this position. I have a few competitors who are as eager as I am about it. And you know me. Once there's competition, I can't let anyone beat me, or in this case, us. I'm going to do whatever I can to get this position, and I hope you'll be beside me every step of the way.
He was right. I knew Ira, and if there was one thing about him, it's that he would either achieve a particular goal he set for himself by doing everything he possibly could, or die trying. I knew better than anyone that his desire to earn this promotion over the rival candidates was paramount. And he had a point when he said he hoped I would be with him for every step of the journey. I loved him so much, and if it meant that we could have a better life together as a married couple, I would also do everything in my power to help make it happen. So I decided to resign from my job and go with Ira once he got the promotion. Okay, honey, I understand. I'll resign from my job and go with you when you get the promotion.
Thank you, honey. It really, really means a lot. Besides, I don't think you have anything to worry about regarding money. You have some passive income rolling in from real estate, right?
Yes, I do, and that's going well, so I guess I'll be fine for now. When I was still a bachelorette, I inherited a small rental apartment in my grandfather's hometown, along with nearby fields and other pieces of land from his will, but at the time, I kept it without much value and left it to my parents to manage. My parents ran a family real estate business and were relatively wealthy, so even though Grandpa's property was not very profitable at first, they took good care of it because of their attachment to their hometown. However, a few years ago, the price of the land in my name skyrocketed due to the active development of local land. So my parents recommended that I build a new tenant building to generate income while contributing to attracting businesses in the area. Thus, I was able to retire and remain financially secure thanks to passive income. At the time, when we decided to build a new tenant building, we decided to obtain a loan from the bank to start construction, and I volunteered to be in charge of arranging for that. Ira was in charge of the entire procedure, and that's how I initially met him. Although he is younger than me, he was very attentive to the flow of money and the procedures for obtaining different kinds of loans, and I couldn't help but respect him because of how knowledgeable he was of his domain of work. We exchanged contact information for professional purposes at first. He might have questions about some specifics, and I might have some additional details that I'd overlooked. and we messaged each other at least once a day, keeping active communication between each other and making sure that everything was going smoothly. But eventually, as the arrangements for the loan came to a close, what initially were thank yous and goodbyes turned into a conversation about personal things, like hobbies. That's where we discovered we both had a burning passion for road trips. And before I knew it, I found myself texting with him late at night before going to sleep. After perhaps a week of just texting back and forth, he took it all a step further and asked me out for dinner. I accepted, and dinner went wonderfully. We started hanging out more and more until we started a relationship. 28 months later, that relationship led to marriage, and since then, Ira had become a dependable partner in both our personal and business lives. Back to the story. Soon after Ira was transferred to another company, he started working more holidays and did extra hours of work quite often. Evidently, this led to the rapid decline in time we spent together. Even regular sit-down dinners at home became depressingly rare.
I'll be home late at night for a while, so I'll be going out for dinner, honey.
What? Won't that destroy your health?
You're right. If I don't moderate myself and fall behind here, my rivals are going to take advantage of that. Thanks, honey. I think you just saved my career. I guess I'll have to be sure to stay healthy. I'll be working on my next day off, too.
Oh no, you're almost never off anymore, Ira. If you get sick from overworking, you'll never get ahead again. You know that, right?
You have no idea how hard I work. I'm trying to do my best, and you, my wife, are showing me that kind of attitude? I'm honestly very disappointed, honey.
This position at the other branch work was very competitive with other employees who were equally good candidates, and he was under a lot of stress because he had to work overtime every day to improve his sales performance. When I complained about how much he was working and that he ought to be resting a lot more, he turned resentful and his attitude turned cold. Since we didn't spend time together to begin with, we really couldn't find the time to sit down, talk things over, and make up. Our differences were left untreated, so to speak, and repairing our deteriorating relationship had become a big hardship for us. Our once wonderful, quaint life as a married couple had become one where we were living in a state of separation right at home. I began to wonder if I would be able to go with him if he decided to accept this better position. The thing was, I had already submitted my resignation to the company and had already begun to take over the arrangements for moving. I couldn't back out now, but I thought I would try to get him to permit me to withdraw my resignation notice somehow. In other words, maybe not going with him was the better option, and I decided to talk to my husband about it. Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?
What do you want? I'm busy, so make it quick.
How's the promotion going?
Oh, you want to know about that? Well, it looks like it's going to be me that's going to get promoted after all. The dude that was really going neck and neck with me as the only other who was tied for first place got sick.
Oh, really? That's good then. I won't have to quit my job.
Huh? What are you talking about? That's not what we discussed, Catherine.
It's true, we made a promise, but our relationship right now is nowhere near the same as what it was at that time.
What could possibly be so different? I'm just working so hard to get us a better life.
I don't deny that you're working hard, and I'm very proud of you for doing so, but I'm still trying to be your wife, who's supposed to be a loving companion in the home. What's the point of a wife following their husband if the situation's pretty much becoming one where we live separated under the same roof?
Living separated? I don't feel that's our relationship at all, honey. That's just what you concluded yourself, isn't it? I still consider you my lovely wife, you know?
If you think I'm your wife, then tell me how much time you've spent with me in the last few months. Tell me what time you've been home every day, and when you haven't had to work on a holiday or stay overnight at the office.
That's my job. That's what I'm expected to do for a little while. I can't do my job properly if I'm blamed for every little thing.
What if that little while, which I'm assuming means a few months, maybe a year or two, becomes a decade, 2 or more? I didn't sign up for a life forcibly separated from the man I love. Anyway, I'm going off topic. The point is that I can't go along with you if you do get promoted, Ira.
Don't be so selfish. If you keep this up, we'll end up breaking up because of you. Are you really telling me you won't mind if that happens?
Why is it my fault? Everything I just said is not selfish at all. It's because you work too many overtime hours and too many holidays for us to keep what we have alive. So if you want to blame someone else, your workplace seems to be the best place.
Oh, enough, Catherine. Don't be so dramatic. How in the world would that be the fault of my workplace?
You haven't had a single day off in over 6 months. I know so because I've been marking my calendar. That is absolutely crazy. If this ends in divorce, I'm suing your workplace.
Now, wait a minute, Catherine. Calm down.
I was just trying to prove a point to him by using the idea that I would sue his workplace if this kept up, but he was getting visibly anxious for some reason. And it made me wonder if that was the key to turning the tables in my favor here. I mean, you've been ordered to work overtime pretty much every day and on your days off, haven't you? I mean, it's not like you're using work as a cover-up to something else. You're not going around gallivanting, are you?
Don't be ridiculous. You stated your case, honey, and you make a good point. I'm going to start spending more time at home. But please, let's just stop the arguing, okay?
If that's your intention, I'm fine with it. After that argument, Ira suddenly became a lot kinder, and he started coming home earlier, having dinner with me and taking the initiative in cleaning up after us. On weekends, he would plan day trips to the mountains or the ocean, and he became more proactive about getting our deteriorating relationship back on its feet. I was more confused than happy, to be frank, but I told myself that he was finally making an effort, so I should be honest with him too. On the day of a particular day trip, we started driving to the mountains, but I fell asleep after drinking a cup of coffee that he had bought at a little diner along the way. We had planned to go hiking on a gentle trail that day, but my legs felt wobbly after waking up from my slumber when we arrived, and I felt too ill to walk properly.
Well, here we are. It's a beautiful day, isn't it?
Hey, I am still kind of groggy. I think I'll just rest a little longer.
We're wasting time, honey. We should get going. It's gonna get dark soon, and after a short walk, you'll feel awake again.
I honestly don't think so. I don't think I can even stand, Ira. I'm just so sleepy.
I'll hold your hand and we'll go for a little walk.
We're here anyway. I suppose it would be a shame to waste a trip. However, as we were walking along the trail, hand in hand, my own mind in a daze, a local tourist guide with a sign on his board came up to me and strongly warned me that I would slide off the cliff if I continued on my way in this condition. Ira reluctantly complied with the warning, and I walked back to the parking lot with him holding me by the arm. I was sound asleep the moment I sat back down in the passenger seat, and I slept the whole way back. Along the way, I dreamily heard him talking on the phone with someone.
Oh, I failed this time. She was so conspicuous with how groggily she was walking. Maybe I put in a little too much.
I vaguely wondered if he was talking about work, but even my nauseous, sleepy self knew that there was something unnatural about the conversation. When we arrived at home, I ended up sleeping until the next morning. When I apologized to Ira for ruining his day off, he didn't seem to be in a bad mood and instead said,
You've been feeling pretty tired these days, haven't you? Why don't you take the rest of the day off? Oh, I know. I'll make you dinner. I can only make curry or something simple like that, though.
Well, to be honest, curry sounds very nice. I'll take your word for it. I do have work tomorrow, so would you mind if I stay in bed a little longer?
Of course not. You rest however much you want, honey.
About an hour later, I ate his homemade curry and it tasted delicious. Unfortunately, no thanks to the extreme sleepiness I was feeling, I didn't have much of an appetite. I wasn't able to finish what was on my plate. Since it was homemade curry, I decided to take it for tomorrow's lunch. So I secretly put it in Tupperware and put it discreetly in the refrigerator while he was out of the kitchen. The next morning, I still felt pretty sluggish, so I overslept and had to rush to work before I had time to eat breakfast. While standing on the platform as I was waiting for the train on my way to the office, I suddenly felt a huge wave of nausea overwhelm me. My eyes started to swim, and as I tried to control the dizziness, I couldn't stand still and I slumped forward. Then I felt a tugging sensation on my foot and I completely lost my balance. And I felt my body floating in the air. I then heard screams all around me and I came to my senses. I felt strong pains all over my body as I felt my knees, elbows, and most other bones slam against the hard steel frame of the train tracks below. I looked up and saw what appeared to be a station attendant screaming and offering his hand to me. In that split second, my senses returned completely, and all feelings of nausea and overwhelming sleepiness disappeared as I stood up quickly and grabbed the station attendant's hand. Several people around me grabbed my arms and clothes one after another and helped pull me up. As I was pulled up, a train came in to graze my back. My life was literally saved in such a critical moment. "Thank you so much," I muttered and passed out. When I came to, I was almost immediately questioned by my doctor at the hospital about my state of consciousness and physical condition. In particular, he persistently asked me what medications I was taking, but I had no way of answering because I simply didn't take any regular medications whatsoever. However, the doctor, whose name was Dr. Cromwell, told me that there was an abnormal value of an unusual substance in my blood.
There is evidence of a recent overdose of a certain narcotic in your blood, Mrs. Brennan. It causes side effects such as drowsiness and muscle weakness.
I was very surprised because I don't remember taking any drug even remotely similar to what he described.
Do you remember what you ate in the past 2 days?
I tried to remember, but I explained to the doctor that I had not eaten anything except curry the day before and coffee the day before that. And as I told him this, I thought of a chilling possibility. And as it engulfed my mind with a firm grip of certainty, my hands started shaking. No, there's no way I was... Yes, indeed. I started feeling very sleepy and sick after consuming all the food and drink that Ira gave me. For instance, 2 days prior when we were going to hike up that mountain after I downed that cup of coffee, Ira tried to persuade me to go hiking regardless of my very obvious dizziness. If there had been no one to stop me, I might have fallen off a cliff somewhere. And remember I mentioned a telephone call that I somehow overheard despite my deep, drugged slumber? He was talking on the phone with someone in the car on the way home, and I guess the word failed meant that he had failed in his plan to throw me off the cliff. And the words, "maybe I put in a little too much," meant he had mixed in too big a dose of the drug for it to be inconspicuous. The obvious question was why? I couldn't think of any possible reason why Ira would do something so horrible. Moreover, he seemed to be in cahoots with someone else, because I distinctly remember someone tripping me as I stumbled forward on the train platform this morning. Despite my all too obvious terror towards the dawning realization of what was actually going on here, Dr. Cromwell went on to tell me,
If you really didn't take the drugs yourself, Mrs. Brennan, then it's possible that someone knowingly administered them to you. And should that be the case, the best advice I can offer you is that you'd better talk to the police.
"Yes, you're right, Doctor. I will." I decided to call the police to conduct numerous investigations and hopefully provide me with the truth. I explained to the police what had happened over the last 2 days and submitted the hospital test results and the leftover curry from my lunchbox that was supposed to be eaten for lunch that day. My condition steadily improved that day thanks to an IV, and the next day I was discharged from the hospital because they said I could recover at home. But instead of returning to my home with Ira, whom I was genuinely afraid of by that point, I explained the situation to my parents and asked them to come and pick me up. Needless to say, my parents were shocked when I told them the story, and rushed to pick me up almost immediately. But they were skeptical about my story. I mean, who wouldn't be? I then called my husband, pretending that I hadn't come to any conclusion so as not to arouse his suspicion. "Hey, honey, looks like I'll be going away for a few days. Sudden onset business trip."
A business trip? Okay, I got it. By the way, did you notice anything unusual today? How are you feeling?
I figured that if he knew what had happened at the station, he'd be suspicious if I blurted out that nothing had happened, so I explained. "So I still feel really sleepy, and I didn't know I could fall asleep standing up, but I did. I fell and scraped my leg."
Are you alright?
"Of course, I'm fine, honey. Nothing major at all."
Okay, thank God. Well, good luck with your business trip.
"I'll do my best." I hung up the phone and sighed. This would be the last conversation I would ever have with my husband. I decided to report sick to work, stay at my parents' home to recover fully, and wait for the police to contact me. Later, the police arrested Ira, and I, as the victim of attempted assault, was escorted to the police station to answer questions. The officers were all very kind, particularly Officer Malroy, who offered me a cup of cocoa and told me exactly what happened during the incident. It turned out that the curry my husband had made had been laced with an excessive amount of a certain narcotic that matched the one that had been administered to me and found in my bloodstream. The drug was called topiramate, better known as Topamax, and it's often used to prevent seizures and treat severe migraines. It's a drug that must be prescribed by a medical expert. The problem was that Ira had never been prescribed such a drug, so the police searched around his social circle for someone who could have been using the drug, and they identified a coworker who was a regular user of the drug at the same place of his employment. Remember when Ira had mentioned his number one competitor had fallen ill? Well, it was him, whose name was Mr. Edward McCullen. He had become ill with stress-induced migraines, dizziness, and other symptoms, and he was prescribed with Topamax to cope with them. He testified that Mrs. Cullen, his wife, had stolen his medication, and he recognized the bottle in which he stored the pills. This alone revealed Ira's adulterous relationship with Mrs. McCullen, and in turn, clearly revealed Ira's motive for committing the crime. My husband had been cheating on me by lying to me about working overtime and working on holidays. And when we had an argument by saying I was going to sue his workplace, I would confirm his working situation with his boss. He essentially panicked because he knew that his adultery was going to be exposed if he didn't take action. Divorce was not an option for him because of his promotion and career prospects. He instead decided to get rid of me entirely. He was going to push me down the cliff on the mountain trail, and when that failed, he probably planned to fake a train accident next. With me gone, he thought they could take possession of my real estate assets and continue his affair with the woman. The proof of their collusion was the audio recording of Ira on the car camera, and the security cameras showing someone who looked a lot like her tripping me on the station platform just before I fell onto the tracks. My parents and in-laws were shocked when they found out all the facts and urged me to divorce Ira. They were indeed in disbelief when they found out he was arrested, but now they understood that divorce was unavoidable because the charges were expected to be more serious than assault. Plus, his affair had been exposed. My in-laws have apologized to me and have agreed to pay my alimony on his behalf. I cannot forgive that bastard, but I felt sorry for Mr. and Mrs. Brennan, who were both very troubled because their child had become a criminal. I decided to file a claim for alimony and compensation through my lawyer. According to the lawyer, Mrs. McCullen was also receiving demands alimony from her own ex-husband. Both of them will have to pay a hefty amount of money as well as prison time, which will be a huge burden and inconvenience to their parents, siblings, and relatives. I feel lucky to have escaped from their terrible schemes, but I will not be able to heal easily from the heartbreak of being betrayed by someone I once loved and trusted. I decided to resign from my current job, move to my grandfather's hometown, and get serious about attracting companies to the area by managing and promoting the tenant building. Thanks to its popularity, I'm actually planning on expanding the complex in a few years, and that could really help revitalize the dwindling town. I'm sure Grandpa will be happy to see his hometown come back to life from above, so I'm going to do what I can to live my life well and happy as I strive to realize that dream.